The Starbucks cold brew you love is now available in a can. It's so good, you'll believe that too good to be true can be true. Like finding out that you and your crush have been listening to the same playlist on repeat. With the smooth taste of Starbucks cold brew in a can, sipping is believing. Available in 3 delicious flavors. Shop now wherever you buy groceries. Click or tap the banner to learn more.
Curious about how you can achieve smooth, natural-looking, long-lasting filler results? The Juvederm collection of fillers has 6 unique gel fillers that add subtle volume and are designed for different needs in specific areas of the face, like lips, cheeks, chin, smile lines, under eyes, and jawline. Ask your licensed specialist for a full face assessment today and download the ALLE app, that's ALLE, the official loyalty program of Juvederm, to save on treatments and get a look that's true to you. For important safety information and to find a licensed specialist, visit Juvederm.com. That's JUVEDERM.com. Not for people with severe allergic reactions, allergies to lidocaine, or the proteins used in Juvederm. Common side effects include injection site redness, swelling, pain, tenderness, firmness, lumps, bumps, bruising, discoloration, or itching. There's a risk of unintentional injection into a blood vessel, which can cause vision abnormalities, blindness, stroke, temporary scabs, or scarring. Talk to a licensed specialist to find out if it's right for you.
Ever wondered what happens when real-life events inspire Hollywood action? Step into 1986, a time when high-octane, patriotic thrillers ruled the big screen. In this 80s action flick, we witness an elite military team led by none other than Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin taking on a hijacking crisis with rocket-powered bravery and martial arts skill. Based loosely on actual events, this film blended explosive action with a tension-filled storyline that may not have broken box office records, but entertained countless viewers who discovered it on cable and VHS. So assemble the team, get on your rocket-firing motorcycle, and don't miss the plane as Chris Adams, Gerry D, and I discuss The Delta Force from 1986 on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast.
This is a hijack and south!
When there is no hope, no chance, no possibility of escape, Delta Force gets the word.
It's a go. Take them down.
They're not after adventure or glory. They're fighting to save American lives.
No! You take one of us, you gotta take us all.
Chuck Norris, Lee Marvin. The Delta Force, rated R. Starts Friday, February 14th at theaters.
I'm Tim Williams, the mastermind behind the mic at the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Joining me on each epic episode is a guest co-host who's as crazy about 80s flicks as they are about wearing parachute pants and solving Rubik's Cubes. We're diving into nostalgic treasures we saw at the local theater, rented on VHS tapes, or discovered on cable TV. From blockbusters that make you say,
I feel the need for speed.
To hidden gems that'll have you screaming,
They're here.
It's a blast to relive these old memories and share our thoughts on what made these movies so special. We reminisce about our first time watch experiences, share our favorite scenes, and even discover fascinating behind the scenes tales about the cast and crew along the way. Haven't hit that subscribe button yet? What are you waiting for?
Come on, do it.
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And hey, while you're at it, be a pal and drop us a written review along with a 5-star rating to tell us what you think about us.
The sportos, the motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Take a day off and come hang out with us on social media. Just search 80s Flick Flashback on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to bookmark 80sflickflashback.com for more gnarly content.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative.
Want to crank it all the way up to 11? Become a supporter on buymeacoffee.com for only $5 a month.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Click the link in our episode show notes, and while you're there, soak up the extra trivia and fun stuff that didn't make it into today's show. Thanks again for tuning in. Now, let's get right into today's episode.
Welcome to the party, pal.
All right, well, welcome in, everybody. So glad to have you for this episode. Hey, we're kicking off action-packed August, all of August. Every week, you're going to get a new episode. We're going to discuss one of the movies put out by the action stars of the 80s. So I had to start off with Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin, Lee Marvin, maybe not an 80s action star, but of course, Chuck Norris. And the Delta Force was the one we chose. Was it his best of the 80s? Probably not, but still very memorable and a fun watch. But with me back again to guest co-host, glad to have these two gentlemen with me. First up, we've got Chris Adams from a Retro Life for You podcast. How you doing, Chris?
Doing great. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you on this one. If you don't know, he and I, one of the first episodes I was on with his podcast, where we discussed the history of Chuck Norris films from the 70s and 80s. I think we go in the 90s, a little bit of the 90s.
It was really just the 80s, but we did say that we felt kind of obligated to mention his 70s ones because there wasn't that many of them.
Yeah,
there was a few.
Yep. So go check that episode out as well. And then, of course, from Totally Rad Christmas, because terrorists and Christmas just seem to go together.
Especially at the Nakatomi Plaza.
Right. So it's Gerry D from Totally Rad Christmas. What's up, Gerry?
Hey, what's going on, man? Good to be here. I'm
glad to have you.
What a movie. I'm down. I'm ready.
All right. Well, you know how we start this one. So we'll start with Chris. When did you see Delta Force for the very first time?
Let's see. I don't think I went to the theater for this one, although I think, was this 86 when it came out?
86, yeah.
It may have been theater. I was 13. I don't think I saw it in the theater, though. I might be wrong. If I didn't see it in theater, I saw it on VHS right when it got released. One of the two, for sure. I like it. I mean, I loved it. It's not my favorite Chuck Norris film of the 80s. Yeah, you mentioned, was it the best? And to me, it's not, but I do like it, though. It was good. Yeah. When I think Chuck Norris, I think more of he's using those martial arts a little bit. And I don't think really in this movie did he much do any martial arts. I mean,
little bit.
Yeah.
There's like one fight scene, maybe.
One kick. There's one kick, but it's mostly punches. I'm like, that was my only disappointment in it. Otherwise, it was a good movie.
Yeah. So what about you, Gerry? When did you see it for the first time?
So I also did not see it in theaters. I feel like I have a vague memory of going to my aunt's house and my uncle, who was in Vietnam, he was a vet. I remember him watching it, and I only remember because of the motorcycle, with the rockets, which I'm sure we'll get into later.
But yes.
Like that image on the TV, and it was one of those old-fashioned TVs,
right.
It was like huge and deep and wide. And I remembered the motorcycle and just seeing like the rockets, and it was like firing guns, and I thought, this is awesome. What is this?
Right.
So I saw like part of it there. I don't know when I saw the whole thing, but I feel like I saw it a lot in the 80s, and then I kind of hadn't watched it again for a while. So yeah, I don't know exactly when, but it was probably around 87 that I saw it the first time. That's what I'd say. Yeah.
This isn't one that I saw in the theater either. I'm sure, my dad was a big Chuck Norris fan, as I've discussed before. So I'm pretty sure this is one that we rented. But, I really didn't remember anything at the beginning. Like most of the beginning, rewatching it was like, I don't remember any of this. I don't know if I just like fell asleep at the beginning and woke up when it got the action in at the end. But yeah, the motorcycle was a part. I was like, oh, I totally remember this. And I think like once, if I watched it again, if it was ever on cable, which I don't remember this being a big, HBO movie, but probably renting it over the summer or, being home, or going over to a friend's house that had copied it or whatever, or, recorded off of cable or whatever. I know we would just watch the end because like most of the end I remembered. So I know I've seen the ending multiple times, but the whole beginning I was like, I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, same. I feel like I've seen it over and over again. And at the same time, like I didn't remember anything until I watched it again, like, a couple of weeks ago. It's just like what? I know I've seen this, but none of this like is ringing a bell. I'm exactly the same. Yeah.
Do you guys think it would have done equally as well if Chuck Norris wasn't the lead in it and it was somebody else?
I mean, well, it didn't do that great anyway
I think,
with Chuck Norris in it.
I mean,
well, you're right about that.
When people talk about Chuck Norris, the '80s, one of the first things they always bring up to me is Delta Force. Did you see Delta Force, dude?
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, but I mean, that's not what I think of when I think of Chuck Norris.
Right,
in
it's
the
like
'80s, you know,
Missing in Action or
Invasion USA,
Invasion USA, yeah, for sure. Lone Wolf McQuade, they all those. Same. It's like Delta Force is kind of like lower on that totem pole for me.
Yeah,
and it has sequel on top of it. So I mean, it's like
several sequels. Yeah,
a couple. Yeah, which I've never seen, but
not being as great as it was, I was surprised that it had sequels with it.
Well, it's Golan and Globus in Canon Films. They're gonna milk whatever it is for as long as they can.
Right, exactly.
I think like it was almost like a decade too early. I feel like in the 90s we got a lot of like, you know,
terrorist type of
movies.
Die Hard gave you that.
Executive, what was the Executive Decision?
Executive Decision, yeah. Air Force One.
Air Force One, yeah.
Was Navy SEALs 80s or 90s?
That was 90s. Navy SEAls, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was 1990.
Like if it had come out like maybe 10 years later, I think it would have been a success no matter who was in the lead.
Yeah.
In the 80s, I don't know who else could have played that role well.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe, geez, I don't know. Maybe Charles Bronson. No, because I don't know, man. I really don't. I don't know who else could have done that role and like sold it as much as he did.
Well, you got to think about it. And we're way past where we're going to. All right. So before I get there.
Sorry. Yeah.
How long has it been since you rewatched it for the podcast? Everybody, it's been like, we don't remember. It was so long ago. We'll just skip over that question.
Before watching. Yeah. Same.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen it again today. I watched it just today.
Okay.
Same. I got to watch it again.
It's been a while since before today that I've seen it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, same for me. All right. So, but you got to think about like Chuck Norris and the actual Delta Force are like not even really very much in the movie. Like they're in the opening, and then like there's like a whole hour, just about a whole hour of the hijacking and like the other people before they even come on the scene. So, you say it's a Chuck Norris movie, which it is. But he's not really in it as much as you think he would be because it is quote unquote the Delta Force, but the Delta Force is really only in about half of the movie. So
it's almost like it's a Robert Forster movie.
Yeah,
he's in it like more. He's almost like the lead for a lot of it. It's like focusing on him hijacking the plane, focusing on him like taking over. Which is a strange thing to talk about. That your villain is like, the lead of the movie, but it almost feels like that.
Yeah. For the first half, for sure. Like it's definitely telling that story, which I think, if to give it some credit, which, we're not here to slam the movie because that's not what our show's about.
No.
To give it some
I really
credit,
enjoyed it actually.
Yeah.
But...
to give it some credit, the beginning really sets it apart from a lot of the other, action movies of the 80s where they were really going for like a real story and a real, pulling from real life events and trying to say what would have happened if we sent the Delta Force in, which was the whole, we'll get into the shortage of reproduction, but that was of how the movie was birthed. But watching it now as an adult, I appreciated the beginning because it added some stakes to it where it wasn't just like, oh, they're hijacking and let's see the good guys come in and just blow everybody up. It didn't jump there too fast. So it gave a lot of lead up and some really good tension building moments before the action kicks in at the end. You're like, yeah, USA.
Well, you think about like Rambo 2, right?
Yeah.
They get him out and you're like, all right, go do this thing. And that's exactly what you're talking about. There was no like real build up. And then you same thing with like Commando, like right away it's like they kidnap his daughter and all right, I got to go do my thing. This one actually shows what happened. It takes its time. It shows like the psychological torture that the passengers are going through. I mean, I thought it was well done comparatively speaking, and I agree. Now as an adult, I appreciate that more because as a kid, I would have been like, all right, come on, like let's get the Delta Force in,
All right. Where are they going to blow stuff up? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Chuck Norris is in this. He needs to be like, kicking through windshields and
where's the roundhouse at?
That's right. Roundhouse kicking some faces, I feel like are we going to devolve into like Chuck Norris jokes? I feel like we have to have a couple of Chuck Norris jokes at the end.
Oh man. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I didn't look any up, but yeah, we'll have some ready. We'll do that for sure.
Okay.
All right, let's jump into story origin and pre-production. And there's not a whole lot in here. I didn't want to make it too long, but so in '85, it was announced that the Delta Force would be made with Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson and Joseph Zito directing. The budget was to be $12 million. Menahem Golan said, "We look at Chuck Norris as having the potential of a Clint Eastwood. His acting talent is getting better." I was like, is that a slam? But it is. His acting talent is getting better.
It's like backhanded compliment.
Right. Yeah. He's in the right style and he's very popular. So, Chuck Norris was a no-brainer. Bronson actually dropped out of the film due to his commitment to another project named Act of Vengeance, which also came out in '86. On August 1st of '85, Lee Marvin signed on, but not as Bronson's replacement, as the role was eventually rewritten. Producer Menahem Golan also replaced Zito for directorial duties. Marvin said the film, quote unquote, shows the American audience a larger view of terrorism than they're used to seeing on the small screen and in the news. There you see a plane at the end of the runway, but what's it like to be on a plane as the facilities deteriorate? It's bad enough on a 7-hour flight. Imagine what the bathrooms are like after 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, that water is not potable. So
yeah. So filming started in October of '85, and it was shot entirely in Israel. Pentagon scenes were shot at the GG Israel Studios facility near Jerusalem, owned by Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, which I knew with them being the directors and being, Israel, from Israel, it made sense that it was filmed there, which gave it a lot of realism for sure. Much more than you would see, if they try to do that in California or whatever. So
right. Well, there's something about shooting on location, right? There's like an authenticity. That's just, because you imagine, you think about, and I love Star Wars, where they went to Tunisia to film all the Tatooine scenes, and it felt like an actual desert. Whereas when you see stuff like the Phantom Menace, again, I like it too, but it's like you see all the green screen stuff, and it's just
it doesn't translate the same
or like physics. You know what I mean? It just it doesn't quite hit the same visually. So
a really good example of that is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I was going to say the same thing.
There you
New Zealand.
Yeah,
to New Zealand, there was also were some very awesome sites.
Yeah, which was so cool because for people who had never been to New Zealand, they didn't realize that the country looked like that how beautiful it was. I thought, like, where did that had to been CGI? I was like, no, that was just where I grew up.
Right.
Right.
And now these messages.
What's up, dudes? I'm Gerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
and Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
The Starbucks cold brew you love is now available in a can. It's so good you'll believe that too good to be true can be true. Like finding out that you and your crush have been listening to the same playlist on repeat. With the smooth taste of Starbucks cold brew in a can, sipping is believing. Available in 3 delicious flavors. Shop now wherever you buy groceries. Click or tap the banner to learn more.
Curious about how you can achieve smooth, natural-looking, long-lasting filler results? The Juvederm collection of fillers has 6 unique gel fillers that add subtle volume and are designed for different needs in specific areas of the face, like lips, cheeks, chin, smile lines, under eyes, and jawline. Ask your licensed specialist for a full face assessment today and download the ALLE app, that's ALLE, the official loyalty program of Juvederm, to save on treatments and get a look that's true to you. For important safety information and to find a licensed specialist, visit Juvederm.com. That's JUVEDERM.com. Not for people with severe allergic reactions, allergies to lidocaine, or the proteins used in Juvederm. Common side effects include injection site redness, swelling, pain, tenderness, firmness, lumps, bumps, bruising, discoloration, or itching. There's a risk of unintentional injection into a blood vessel, which can cause vision abnormalities, blindness, stroke, temporary scabs, or scarring. Talk to a licensed specialist to find out if it's right for you.
So I want to talk a little bit about, we mentioned in the intro that it's loosely based on some actual events. So it drew inspiration from two real life events, the Flight 847 hijacking and Operation Entebbe. Here are a few key elements from both real life and film. I like doing this when it's stuff based on true events. So the TWA Flight 847, the hijacked flight took off from Athens on June 14, 1985. In the film, ATW likewise departs Athens on July 19th, 85. So didn't want to use the same date. The movie airline American Travelways Airlines is abbreviated as ATW, an anagram of Trans World Airlines. While the plane used is a Boeing 707, TWA used a Boeing 727 for Flight 847. Both airlines originated from Cairo with stops in Athens and Rome. Unlike TWA 847, which had two more stopovers in Boston and Los Angeles before ending in San Diego, the film's flight ends in New York. Two terrorists hijacked the flight. The third is arrested in Athens in both real life and the film, which I didn't realize that. That was a nice little touch they put there. Mm-hmm. The flight, I like this too. The flight is managed by a German-American flight purser who is forced by the hijackers to segregate Jewish passengers from the non-Jews by identifying them through collected passports. Real-life flight attendant Yuli Dirksen, who was the purser on TWA Flight 847, served as the basis for Ingrid Harding, the film's purser, which I thought was cool that she was actually based on a real person. 3 U.S. Navy members are on board the flight and are held hostage. One is shot and dumped off the plane into the tarmac. While this incident happened at night in both real life and the film, the latter depicts the setting at Algiers as opposed to Beirut in the former. Additional henchmen board the plane along with the released hijacker. Women and children are released. Among them is a pregnant passenger. So all that was from the TWA incident. For Operation Entebbe, the hostage rescue scene when the commandos raid the terrorist quarters, a pregnant woman is on that flight as well. Unlike Flight 847, this passenger is the first to be released after pretending to either go into labor or suffer miscarriage. And a single casualty among the rescuers near the end of the operation. So that was interesting that they did pull some real life things for the story to give it some authenticity.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add or anything that stood out to you that was interesting in those little things?
I like when things are based on real life events.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you can't like copy them exactly unless you're actually doing like a movie like that.
Right.
Like what's that movie that Steven Spielberg directed about the Olympics?
Munich.
Like Munich. That's of course they had to change a lot of things, but you know, I like stuff like that. But for an action movie like this to kind of do it is, I don't know, good for them for trying, you know?
Yeah. I will say, like, one of the most startling, I know we're not into favorite scenes, I wouldn't say this is my favorite scene, but one of the scenes that really kind of startled me was when they dump the body or they shoot the guy in the cockpit.
Oh, yeah.
Body out. But I remember seeing, like, I was probably too young to see that on TV, but I've seen clips of that, like, in year of review of, you know, of hostage things. Like, that's something that's been shown where, like, that really happened. And I like this, for them to duplicate that in this movie, I thought was like, that had to have been pretty intense.
Well, there was a few
in a
things
theater,
as well. So, like when the pilot is giving the interview and the terrorist is there holding the gun, I mean, like that was in papers. You can see that like 1-to-1. I mean, they really took some of that stuff seriously, and I think that's super cool. You know, it does give it like a level of realism that you know we're not used to, or we weren't used to in that time. You know, everything was like over the top in the 80s. So.
But adding some realism like that makes it a little more interesting for you to watch. Because something like, if you're an adult at that time, you remember reading about it or seeing it on the world news or something, and you're like, you're watching this movie now and you're reflecting back on what happened. And, you know, you're getting this kind of like, I don't like to say the satisfaction of seeing it, the outcome, but I mean, in a sense, you're kind of getting that satisfaction of seeing the terrorists getting it handed to them, you know, you're getting your justice through the movie. Against the terrorists. It's about something bad that happened. So
It's almost, I would even say it's almost Tarantino-esque at this point. I mean, looking at it now, because Tarantino's done that with like Inglourious Basterds. He did it with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you take a real life event where the things didn't happen, wasn't a happy ending, and then keeps some things that are very true and realistic. But then the ending, it turns to where it's like, well, the ending is all fiction, but everything before that is kind of based in real life or based on actual events. So it's interesting that, I wonder if this is one of Tarantino's favorites that he would watch over and over again.
Who knows?
Yeah. Tarantino, if you're listening, please call us and let us know. I'm sorry, Mr. Tarantino. Thank you.
And what's that number he can reach you at, Tim?
I won't share it here. It's in the show notes. So you can email.
There you go.
Email it. All right. Well, let's jump into casting. Pretty big cast.
Huge cast. Yeah.
I really try to only pick, famous people, but names that we would recognize or have been in other things. But of course, we're going to start with the man himself, Chuck Norris, as Major Scott McCoy, the deputy commander of the Delta Force unit. After serving the United States Air Force, Norris won many martial arts championships and later founded his own discipline, Chun Kuk Do. Shortly after, in Hollywood, Norris trained celebrities in martial arts. Norris went on to appear in a minor role in the spy film The Wrecking Crew in 1968. Friend and fellow martial artist Bruce Lee invited him to play one of the main villains in The Way of the Dragon in 1972.
Yeah.
While Norris continued acting, friend and student Steve McQueen suggested he take it seriously. Norris took the starring role in the action film Breaker in 1977, which turned a profit. His second lead, Good Guys Wear Black, in 1978 became a hit, and he soon became a popular action film star. He went on to star in a streak of bankable, independently made action and martial arts films, including A Force of One in 1979, The Octagon in 1980, and Eye for One. This made Norris an international celebrity. He went on to make studio films as well, like Silent Rage in 1982, Forced Vengeance in 1982, and Lone Wolf McQuade in 1983. This led Cannon Films to sign Norris into a multiple film deal, starting with Missing in Action in 1984, which proved to be very successful and launched a trilogy. Norris started to work almost exclusively on high-profile action films with Cannon, becoming its leading star during the 1980s. Films with Cannon include this one, of course, Invasion USA in 1985, Firewalker in 1986, among others. Apart from the Cannon films, he also made Code of Silence in 1985, which was received as one of his best films. And of course, in the 90s, he played the title role of the long-running CBS television series Walker, Texas Ranger from 1993 to 2001.
That's right. You sure did.
Can't forget Walker, Texas Ranger.
Nope, not at all. I like Invasion USA, man. It's dumb and over the top, because it's just Chuck Norris just time to die. I mean, it's just, but also it's awesome. So I can't say anything bad about it.
Yeah, I can honestly say, I remember watching Invasion USA multiple times, and I remember that being one that my dad was like, "I don't know if you should watch that," because I think it was another rated R, action movie back then.
Yeah, lots of deaths.
Yeah, and so, but I think at some point, I think I got these two. I think the Invasion USA and Delta Force in my mind kind of got merged together until I went back and watched Invasion USA a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is not the one that I thought it was." So,
lots of Uzis, right? I mean, both Uzis, mini Uzis. It's like Uzis everywhere.
Uzi was the gun of choice back then.
It was, it was like the '80s gun, right? If you were a bad guy or a good guy, you used an Uzi.
I don't remember with Invasion USA if it was in which direction this went, but Avenging Force is tied to that. I believe it's either Avenging Force is a sequel that was so well. Let me take it back.
Yeah.
Let me take it back. The character is played in Avenging Force is the character that's played in Invasion USA, but Chuck Norris didn't want to do it, so they got Michael Dudikoff to do it.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
So you would have had Chuck Norris and Steve James playing another movie together again. Like they did Delta Force.
Yeah.
Instead, it ended up being the duo that was in a different Golden Globes kind of thing. We won't go into that, but I forget which direction it went. But the character is the same character in both, I believe.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Sounds right. I trust you on that one.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about Lee Marvin as Colonel Nick Alexander, the commander of the Delta Force. Lee Marvin. Known for his bass voice and premature white hair, he is best remembered for playing hard-boiled tough guy characters. Although initially typecast as the heavy, he later gained prominence for portraying anti-heroes such as Detective Frank Ballinger on the TV series M Squad from 57 to 60. Marvin's notable roles in film included The Killers in 64, The Professionals in 66, The Dirty Dozen in 67, Paint Your Wagon in 69, Point Blank in 67, and The Sergeant in the Big Red One in 1980. I didn't realize that was an 80s movie. I had to put that one on my list. Marvin achieved numerous accolades when he portrayed both gunfighter Ked Shalene and criminal Tim Strawn in a dual role for the comedy Western film Cat Ballou in 65 alongside Jane Fonda. A surprise hit which won him the Academy Award for Best Actor, along with the BAFTA Award, a Golden Globe Award, and Silver Bear for Best Actor. Sad to say, he was ill with abdominal pains and an inflamed colon during filming. So that's a real actor right there, because I'd be like, sorry, you get to do that with me on that one.
Acted like it didn't hurt.
Right. That's why he's kind of
he's a tough guy, yeah.
My stomach is imploding, but let me tell you this. Give you this line. But this would be his final film before his death on August 29, 1987, at the age of 63. And he had actually talked about, he already had ideas for the sequel that unfortunately he couldn't do because he passed away, but he already had an idea that they were kind of working on for a sequel. So, but yeah, Lee Marvin, I watched The Dirty Dozen a couple of years ago and really enjoyed that. I know I'd seen it once. I'd seen it as a kid before. But yeah, The Big Red One, I need to go back and watch. I haven't seen that one in a while. But
The Dirty Dozen is what comes to mind when I think of Lee Marvin.
Yeah, that one and Paint Your Wagon are the two that I knew.
Oh yeah.
And I only knew Paint Your Wagon because of The Simpsons. They're all excited to watch it, and then it's like a musical or something, and they're like, "What?" They're like, "Oh, here's Lee Marvin. It's gonna be good now." And it's great.
Good old Simpsons.
I know.
All right, so then we got Robert Vaughn as General Woodbridge, the U.S. General and Army Chief of Staff. Vaughn had his breakthrough role as disabled drunken war veteran Chester A. Gwynn in The Young Philadelphians, earning him a 1960 Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He also appeared in scores of films, notably as Gunman Lee in The Magnificent Seven in 1960. Yeah. He was in Bullet and The Bridge of Remagen in 1969. He was the voice of Proteus 4 and Demon Seed in 77. And what I remember the most for, Ross Webster in Superman 3, 1983.
Ross the Boss. Yeah.
Ross the Boss. Yeah.
Well, he was on the A-Team too.
Yeah, he was.
That's what I was going to say. I remember him from as the A-Team the most.
Yep.
Yeah. That last season. Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of like a cameo in this. You know, he just popped up for a few scenes. You know, the of course the future tech we saw when they're having their little video conference calls.
That's right.
Little telephone with his, he's sitting in his chair, like leaned back, like just so fake.
It's very Star Wars, the original, or Star Trek, the original series, right? Yeah, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are today doing the very same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it was just ahead of its time. That's all. Delta Force was ahead of its time.
I told you, if it had been like in '96, it would have been perfect.
Right. Exactly. Made more sense. Right.
No, that's great. Yeah.
All right. And then Chris mentioned Steve James as Bobby, a member of the Delta Force unit and friend of Scott. He starred mostly in action films such as American Ninja Series, the Delta Force, the Exterminator, and Avenging Force, as we mentioned. I remembered him as Kung Fu Joe in the 1988 comedy spoof I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. And in the television pilot spinoff of Hammer, Slammer, and Slade.
Oh, so, I didn't even know that. Oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
He had a cameo in Weird Science.
That's
he really?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he does.
Club.
Yeah.
Club.
Yeah, in the nightclub. That's right.
Yeah, when they're all in the
maracas.
Booth, right?
What can I tell you? She likes maracas.
Yeah, I remember him most, I gotta say, from American Ninja. That's
yeah.
Same here. Because I was a big American Ninja fan.
Heck yeah.
I still am for the first two of them at least.
Yeah.
And after that, I mean, not exactly so much.
And he died really young too. I think he was like cancer or something is what took him.
Oh yeah, I didn't put that on there.
Yeah, something, but it's a shame.
Yeah. He was good in this though. I mean, I liked him. He was good in, I mean, everything I've seen him in, he was good in. So good.
Yeah,
good
agreed.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then of course Gerry D mentioned Robert Forster, which I can tell you right off the bat, I did not realize that was Robert Forster until I was doing the research.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
As Abdul Rafi, the leader of the terrorist group, but I mean, just props to him for like immersing himself in that role. His varied filmography includes Reflections in a Golden Eye in 1967, Alligator in 1980, Me, Myself, and Irene in 2000, Mulholland Drive in 2001, The Descendants in 2011, Olympus Is Falling in 2013, London Is Fallen in 2016. So yeah, he's been in a ton of movies. Jackie Brown was probably his biggest role.
That's what I know.
Yeah, that's when I think I kind of knew, like, I really knew who he was. Like, he was kind of that guy before Jackie Brown, and then it's like, oh, he's been in a bunch of other stuff, but everything he's been in has been fantastic. So,
but you're right. Like, the makeup is really good on him, right? Like, it's hard to tell that it's him.
Exactly.
With the mustache, and he's got the big, thick hair. And I think part of it is because nowadays we're so used to seeing him like older,
right?
You know, but yeah, it was good. He looked the part. I thought that they did a great job.
So
and,
he was.
You're going to have to do Alligator too, okay? You're going to have to do Alligator one day. If you don't do Alligator, I'm going to do Alligator. One of us is going to have to do it.
Yeah,
that's right.
That is one. It's funny because I forget about that movie, but it came on TV. I remember watching that with my sister.
Yeah.
And I like the opening scene. Don't they like have a little baby alligator and they flush it down the toilet? And
flush it down the toilet.
Exactly what happens. Yeah.
That haunted me for years as a kid, like sitting on the toilet, like the alligator's going to bite me. So,
it's hilarious that you said that a moment ago. Because as soon as you said it, it clicked in my mind. Several weeks back, we did an episode of our favorite movies of the year 1980, and each of us, me and Travis, picked 10 movies. And I was looking through all of them, and I saw Alligator. I said, you know what? I gotta throw that on the list because that when I was young, I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
giant alligator from the sewer comes out and whatever wreaks havoc.
Like, that's like part of that whole like Chud's another great.
Yeah.
That's like part of that whole series of like spin-off or spoofs or like takeoffs of Jaws. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone had their version of it. And,
Piranha. Yeah.
Right? Piranha. Oh.
Yeah. Orca was another.
Orca, good old 80s. That's
good times.
We love this podcast. I want to be in that pitch meeting. So look, it's an alligator, but it's in the sewer.
That's right.
Here's $2 million.
Go make that movie. Yeah.
Go make that movie. Yeah. So Robert Forster was the only Lebanese terrorist that was not portrayed by an Israeli actor. So they had realized Israeli actors for that. But Robert Forster praised Menahem Golan's decision to bring him to Israel 2 weeks prior to the movie scheduled to begin shooting so that he could work with a dialect coach to help him deliver his lines in Arabic. As an aside, Forster shared a great story about Menahem agreeing to buy Hollywood Harry, a film that Forster financed himself but was only able to sell to a few smaller markets. The purchase of Hollywood Harry by Cannon basically saved Christmas for the Forster family that year. So we hear a lot of bad stuff about the Golans, or Golan and Globus. So nice to throw a little nice little thing they did in there for him. So
that's cool. Good stuff.
All right, so getting into the hostages. Martin Balsam as Ben Kaplan. He was an early member of the Actors Studio. He began his career on the New York stage, winning a Tony Award for Best Actor in a Play for Robert Anderson's You Know I Can't Hear You When the Water's Running in 1968. Just titles.
That's a very play kind of title.
His notable film roles include Juror Number 1 in 12 Angry Men, which is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah.
He was the private detective Milton Arbogast in Psycho in 1960. He was in Breakfast at Tiffany's in 61, The Carpetbaggers in 64. He was also in The Bedford Incident, Catch 22, Tora, The Taking of Pelham 123, the original in 74, Murder on the Orient Express in 74, All the President's Men in 76.
That's like this guy's resume is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And then, of course, he went on to be Charles Bronson's friend in Death Wish 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like Murder on the Orient Express, Tora. The Taking of like those are like some huge movies. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So German actress Hannah Schlegula, who played the purser. I didn't do her whole filmography because she didn't have much here. But the story was she broke down on set after filming her scenes with him but as he played one of the hostages who was at one time a Holocaust survivor. So
right.
Yeah, so that was a tense scene. I will give props to that scene. That was well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we've got Shelley Winters as Edie Kaplan. She won Academy Award for The Diary of Anne Frank in 59 and A Patch of Blue in 65. She received nominations for A Place in the Sun in 1951 and The Poseidon Adventure in 72.
Another great one.
Yeah, she also appeared in A Double Life in 47, Lolita in 62, Alfie in 66, and Pete's Dragon in 77.
Mm-hmm.
She also acted on television, including a tenure on the sitcom Roseanne, and wrote 3 autobiographies. So yeah, I recognized Shelley Winters immediately when
yeah. And I knew her most from the Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
That's a good one. Yeah,
that's a good movie.
Yeah.
And then we keep moving along. Here we got Joey Bishop as Harry Goldman, which I did not realize that was Joey Bishop.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
American entertainer who appeared on television as early as 1948 and eventually started his own weekly comedy series, playing a talk variety show host. Then later hosted a late night talk show with Regis Philbin as his young sidekick on ABC. He also was a member of the Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Peter Lawford. He is listed as 96th entry on Comedy Central's list of the 100 greatest comedians. Wow. So this was not a comedy role for him at all, but he did well. And then playing his wife, Sylvia Goldman, was Lainey Kazan, which I would not know her name, but I recognized her immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was known for Saint Elsewhere, the TV show. She also won a Tony Award for My Favorite Year. She was nominated for a Golden Globe for her role in My Favorite Year, the film version. She was also probably most well known for Maria Portocolis and My Big Fat Greek Wedding franchise. She also played Aunt Frida on The Nanny.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding is where I remembered her from.
That's
where I knew her right away from. When I seen her, I was like, a lot of the people who were the hostages are faces that I've seen in 1,000 things, I think, but I could not tell you who they were when I watched it. I was like, and I've seen that guy so many times. I've seen that guy. I've seen that woman. I know I've seen that woman. And Shelley Winters, for Shelley Winters, it seemed like there was some kind of comedy I'm picturing her from or something, maybe, or maybe no, you know what? She reminds me of that lady in Last Starfighter that played Elvira, I think her name was, where she's like, "Pleased to meet you, how do you do?" or something to the alien at the end. She reminded me of her.
Oh, okay.
When I saw her, that face, and I was like, it's probably not her, but I mean, it stuck out to me as her. And then the other one, like you said, Big Fat Greek Wedding, right away, I knew her from there immediately.
Yeah. It's funny because like when I saw her, that was the first thing I thought about. I was like, but I feel like she's been in she probably guest starred on a bunch of TV shows too, which is probably why she seemed like that kind of, she was in a bunch of TV shows, like as a side character or like a guest role. So just one that you've seen a million times. All right, moving down the list, we got George Kennedy as Father William O'Malley.
Frank.
Here we go. He played Dragline and Cool Hand Luke in 67. He also received a Golden Globe nomination for portraying Joe Petroni in Airport in 1970. He was the only actor to appear in all 4 films in the Airport series, reprising the role of Joe Petroni 3 times. He also played Police Captain Ed Hockin in the Naked Gun series.
Yes, he did.
And he was the corrupt oil tycoon Carter McKay on the original Dallas TV series.
That's right.
I of course, know him from Naked Gun. That's the most,
That's the first thing I thought of.
I think most people know him from that. Yeah. I think he was also in Charade, wasn't he? That
might have been. Yeah.
Might have been. That's what was that movie they remade from Charade? It was a Mark Wahlberg movie, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't.
Oh, I'm going to look that up. You go ahead and do it. I'll look it up.
Okay.
I just picture him, talking to Frank and Nordberg.
Right.
Eating there's that part where he's there at the in the game, and he's got like a popsicle, and then
the thing I remember the most about him is when Frank's looking over the window or looking over the ledge of the guy that falls over, and the whole parade of stuff comes over him.
Yeah,
I love that.
And then you see the other guy come up and goes, "That's exactly how my father died."
Anybody else seeing his wife when he's like picking his pockets?
Oh yeah,
he's trying to search the guy, but he actually searches his pockets.
And by the way, that movie is The Truth About Charlie, the remake of the.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. You were way back when Mark Wahlberg.
I had to get it. I done brought it up, so I had to throw it out there.
Yeah, very good. Good research. Way to go. Thank you, Google. But once again, George Kennedy, being a serious actor, him and Leslie Nielsen to go from serious actor to do the comedy was just genius.
Yeah.
Genius, so. All right, we're almost done. Then I got Kim Delaney as Sister Mary. She was very young, but she's known for her role as Detective Diane Russell on the ABC drama TV series NYPD Blue, for which she won an Emmy Award. Early in her career, she played the role of Jenny Gardner on the ABC daytime television drama All My Children. She later had leading roles in the short-lived TV drama Philly, part of the first season of CSI Miami, and the first 6 seasons of Army Wives. She also appeared in the TV show Tour of Duty, Season 2, and the first 2 episodes of Season 3 as reporter Alex Devlin. So I will say, I mentioned her, but going through the filmography, like a lot of you mentioned, Chris, a lot of the hostages, several of them there were several like soap opera actors that were in this movie. So that had background in soap operas. So didn't have major roles, but still I wanted to make note of that.
And I knew her from All My Children because my mom loved that show. Every summer when we were at home and it was lunchtime, it was like, all right, eat quick because like I'm gonna watch my show, and unless you want to stay and watch it, so
you stayed and watched it.
we had to a little bit,
right?
We weren't that fast eating whatever our lunch was. This really is like a who's who of like. I mean, this is just crazy amounts of cast. Like there's Oscar winners, Oscar nominees. I mean. And then Chuck Norris, which he's kind of like the odd man out here, but at the same time, he does a serviceable job.
Yeah, I mentioned that cast includes 4 Oscar winners: Lee Marvin, Martin Balsam, George Kennedy, and Shelley Winters, and 2 Oscar nominees, Robert Forster and Robert Vaughn. But yeah, I mean, that once again, this is what sets it apart from other action movies of the 80s, where they were going, like Golan and Globus were going for it. Like that's what Cannon was trying to do. They were trying to bring legitimacy to their movies by grabbing these actors that had this pedigree, trying to elevate the movie, which, does it elevate it? I think in this one, I think it does. Somewhat.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, like I said, that first hour of the movie before the action kicks in, it's a gripping story. I mean, I'm like I said, maybe as a kid, I wasn't as enthralled, but as an adult, I'm invested in these lives. I'm invested in these characters. So
yeah, 1,000,000% agree.
Yeah. So I will mention there are 3 uncredited extras that we know today. Only one of them I could find a picture of. Liam Neeson as Delta Force member. So I actually have a screenshot that I pulled of him in the orchard, I think is what he calls it, behind the airport when they're bringing the caravan of people in. And he's right behind Steve James. Probably you can find that on the internet pretty well, but it's Liam Neeson. You can tell by his eyes. He's a little bit rounder in the face then. So supposedly McKelty Williamson is also an uncredited extra. We know him as Bubba from Forrest Gump, his probably most notable role. And then Kevin Dillon, which I saw a picture with a guy.
I saw him.
Kind of looked like Kevin Dillon.
I'm glad you said that. I was looking straight at this guy's face. I was like, that's the dude from The Rescue. I know him. That's the guy from, I think, was it Entourage he did later on too?
Yeah, Entourage,
yeah.
He was in Platoon as well.
That's right.
Around the same time. So I was like, it's possible he was in there, but it's just he was an uncredited extra. So
well, if it's not him, he looks a lot like him.
Yeah.
And I think Chuck Norris's son was in it too, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
Okay, I was wondering if that was a son or a brother. I saw the name, and I can never remember which one's the son, which one's the brother. And
Yep, his real life son. I don't know if I put that one in my trivia, but I know I did see that. I did read that.
Was it Eric Norris or
Eric?
So.
Eric. Okay.
Yes, because his son ended up choreographing some of his later movies, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we talked about that.
And some of Walker as well, I believe.
Yeah. I remember us talking about that in the Chuck Norris episode we did. All right. So anybody else in the cast we want to mention, or did I cover the basics?
I think that's pretty much everybody.
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Yeah. If I knew more about that, the actor that played the Greek Orthodox priest, I'd call him out. Yeah. He did a fantastic job.
He did.
But I don't recognize him from anything at all.
Yeah.
So
and there were several people like in the list that didn't have any kind of IMDb or Wikipedia, like nothing. So that one-time movie they were in, or once again, if they were Israeli actors, we don't have much. Probably did stuff over there we don't know much about here. So, I'm sorry. That's going to save them money by having local actors over there instead of flying so many Americans over. So,
right.
And now these messages.
Hey Hey there, fellow 80s movie aficionados. Are you ready to embark on a nostalgia-filled journey to the greatest era of cinema? Then look no further than the Retro Life for You 80s Movie Podcast. Join us every week as we rewind the VHS tapes, dust off those Betamax classics, and dive headfirst into the neon-soaked, totally tubular world of the 1980s movies. From the Brat Pack to action heroes, we've got it all covered. Breakfast Club, Ghostbusters, E.T. and Indiana Jones, and more. It's like a trip in Doc Brown's time machine, but without the DeLorean. So whether you're a die-hard 80s film buff or just curious about the cinematic gems of the past, Retro Life for You is your ticket to the ultimate movie time warp. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Retro Life for You, and we can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast, as well as on our website, www.retrolife4u.com.
This episode is brought to you by Stars. Lisa Tadeo's best-selling book is about to become your favorite new show. Based on a true story, the new Stars original series 3 Women stars Shailene Woodley as Gia, a grieving and struggling writer who embarks on a cross-country road trip where she meets 3 women determined to radically change their lives. This one is not to be missed. Watch the season premiere of 3 Women now, only on Stars and the Stars app.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be. To be.
All right, well, let's talk about, I'm ready, here we go. Let's talk about iconic favorite scenes. I'm rubbing my hands because I'm excited. Here we go. All right, so you know the drill. I'll start with Jerry. If someone said Delta Force, what's the first scene that you think of?
For me, it's the motorcycle.
Yes, of course it is.
It's just because that's what I remember, like walking in, you know, and Chuck Norris on this motorcycle, and it has like the 2 rockets, and then he launches them, and at the end, you know, when he's like, I guess they shoot out from the back as well, right. Because you know they do that, and I remember specifically the scene where Robert Forster's Abdul is in the car. And, you know, Chuck's already kind of beat him up pretty bad, but he's still, you know, like going to try to kill him. He grabs the rifle and then just bam, Chuck just like shoots out the motorcycle, shoots out the rocket backwards and explosion. So for me, that's the scene that I remember most out of everything. And I have others that I had to recall, I guess, now that I've seen it. But like if someone says Delta Force, I think the motorcycle.
What about you, Chris? Same?
It's always a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And talking about what he's to follow up on what he's talking about, how it shoots from the back end. I remembered before watching today and then rewatching it again, specifically where he's trying to get to the airplane and they're taking off and the terrorists are still going toward him trying to shoot at the airplane. And he comes up behind him in the motorcycle, which has also not only a rocket launch, rockets to
machine
shoot
guns,
off, but machine gun on as well.
Guns. Yeah, it's so cool.
So he's shooting the guys, you know, with the machine gun in the back, and then speeds past them,
right,
and blows them up with the rocket shooting out the back.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
So
forget at this point, logic is out the window because I love the machine guns. He's driving straight. He's in between them, but as he's firing, it's obviously hitting the people that are on both sides. So
the only thing that would have made it better, when he's in between them, he does pop a wheelie, right?
Yes.
And the wheel turns slightly a little bit.
Yeah.
If he had popped that wheelie and turned the wheel that way and shot him, and then that way and shot the drivers on both of them.
Yeah.
Pop, 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 pop. You know, they kept on going. Then shot him out of the back end. You know, that would have been better.
Oh yeah. I agree.
More bang for your buck.
That's right.
Love it. Yeah, iconic scene. It's the motorcycle, and exactly what you're talking about, Chris. It's him chasing, or like him catching up to the plane, grabbing onto the rope. But yeah, the shooting the rockets, which he never has to reload. There's like multiple rockets in each shaft. So,
of course. I mean, it's the 80s.
Yeah. I love it when he drives the motorcycle through the window at the house.
Yeah.
In the scene. So I remember that scene pretty vividly. So I think the motorcycle rocket scenes were probably, those are the scenes I know I had to watch a million times, because every time when those scenes popped up, I was like, I totally remember this. I remember this being the coolest thing I ever saw as a kid. It was like, this is what made this movie awesome.
I mean, there's a lot of other scenes that I think are just great.
Yeah.
But I didn't recall them at all until I watched it again.
Right.
So one of the best scenes is when they take over the cockpit and the pilots are just, resisting, and Abdul's like, I know planes, like don't try to mock me or anything.
Right,
he's like contacting everyone. Or the one that I really, really, really enjoy is when they ask the purser, the flight attendant or whatever, to pick out all the Jewish passengers, and she's resisting. It's like so powerful. Yeah, I agree. Super intense. And she's just like, no, if you can't tell, I'm German. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And he's like, I'm sorry, but I need you to do it.
Another intense scene, since you're talking about that, is when the little girl is trying to get her, clearly the cabbage patch off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was like, oh, he's not gonna kill her, is he? Please let me. It's like that would be way too shocking. I was like,
remember, I don't think he does, but I hope he does it.
Yeah. I got a little tense rewatching. I was like, please tell me that he's not gonna kill her. But he did give her the doll back. But it was just like, that was once again a very tense, good acting, good writing, good scene to elevate that tension of what it's like to be on the plane.
But then when they take her, the dad, because the dad's Jewish, or at least has a Jewish sounding name, and she goes to give him the Cabbage Patch as well. I was like, oh, that got me this time, because like my daughter would do the same thing. Like, you can't be here, take this. And I was just like, oh yeah, what are you doing in your movie? Come on, stop it.
It's, again, things as a kid, you're like, that's stupid. But as an adult, you're like, why am I getting... Why am I feeling things? Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When you first watched it back then, it wasn't a thing, right?
No,
when you get older and you have that. When you get older and you have kids, everything changes.
No, it's a whole different thing. Yeah.
All right, Chris, you got some favorite scenes you want to talk about?
Nothing more than what y'all covered already. We talked about the motorcycle on the airport. When the terrorists are all like their little caravan leaving and everything, and they stop, and he's like, why is he stopping up there? Tell him not to. Why is he stopping? What is wrong up there? What's going on? And it's like, it's this man up here on the motorcycle or something. And they look, and he's just sitting up there like,
yeah.
Got a motorcycle, got a rocket on here.
Right.
Boom.
He's like resting his arm on it. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that he keeps telling Lee Marvin, don't wait for me. Don't wait for me.
Yeah, that's a good.
And then he's going to be late. He's always late. He gets there, and there's got to be a way to get him on the plane before it takes off. Once again, not as long as the runway in whichever Fast and Furious that movie that was, where the plane was on the runway for like 15 minutes long. But once again, too long of a runway for all that time that took him to get on there. So, but I will give props to the stuntman on the motorcycle, because at least he did look a lot like Chuck Norris. It wasn't Chuck Norris. But it was pretty close. Right. It was pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Any other scenes we want to talk about?
I got nothing else for you.
I think the only other one that really, really stood out to me was, maybe two little quick things where the Catholic priest like volunteers to go with
the Jewish people. Yeah.
Cool. And then when the Orthodox priest, they find him out. And so they capture him, they take him, and he like runs out on the balcony just trying to warn them to get away. I thought that was pretty powerful too.
Yeah.
And then he plummets to his death, and you're like, oh, yeah. But stuff like that happens, and it's just like, wow, these guys really are just trying to do the right thing. So it's great. It was really good.
Very good. All right, let's talk about some scenes and trivia, maybe make us think of some other scenes as we're going through. Filming in the airplane was not pleasant for the actors and actresses, as temperatures in Israel reached over 100 degrees. Shelley Winters and Menahem Golan had several arguments over this. At one point, she said, "I can't do this. I'll die." To which he replied, "Do it and then die."
Just get it done.
At least let me get my scene finished.
Right,
That's right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Once it's in print, I don't care. Yeah.
No, I feel that, living here in Texas where it was like 103 the other day, and I got in my car and the thermometer was like at 111, and I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. So I understand, but like more and more throughout the movie, they're like taking their clothes off, and you can see like the big old sweat stains, and and so the realism and like the grime and the grit was
which was surprising because like today they would just rebuild the cab. They have those models, or they do it in studio. Like, no, they used a real plane on a tarmac, and they said the hardest part was the cinematographer or the cameramen were actually laying in like the luggage bins above trying to get the shots. Yeah, so it's so crammed in there.
You got to do what you got to do, right? But I think that also added to the claustrophobia, right? It felt tighter.
Yeah.
And so because of that, like that helped amp up the drama as well. So.
Added to the realism for sure. So editor Elaine Jakubowicz, look it up, recalled that he would try to tone down the film's over-the-top elements, only for Menahem Golan to complain that he was quote unquote killing the film. So he was constantly fighting with Golan to keep the elements in. So, but if you didn't know, the Delta Force is a real agency. It's very well known for the quality of their snipers, which were not depicted in the film. They're frequently deployed around the world in small teams to address security issues at embassies, consulates, and bases where training and cross-training with other elite units from NATO countries, especially the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand.
Isn't that crazy? Like to be known for something and then like not even be depicted at that.
Yeah.
Like,
it didn't fit their narrative. So
I feel like nowadays if they had remade this, there'd be snipers all over the place, right?
Oh, for sure.
There'd be one guy just sniping everybody while the team goes in, just providing cover. And but hey, I'll take Chuck Norris in a scuba suit, swimming up the same pipe any day. So
or sliding down the rope from the how you gonna get down from there?
That's right. Just one hand on the rope.
One hand and shooting his Uzi with the other.
And it wasn't even his strong hand either. All right. That was the thing.
All right, get those Chuck Norris jokes ready. We're getting there. All right, so this is for Jerry, and he'd appreciate this. Alan Silvestri's film score was done entirely without an orchestra. Although producer Menahem Golan proudly proclaimed the score was intended to showcase what a synthesizer can do in the hands of a good composer, in the years since, Silvestri has said he was only given $15,000 to compose and record the score, so it was the only way to get it done, as hiring a professional orchestra and a recording studio was out of the question on that budget.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a great score. I mean, I think they even used the theme like for what, like the Indy 500 or
Indy
something
500,
like that. Yeah. I like Alan Silvestri. I mean, he does Predator, Back to the
Avengers,
Future,
Marvel, the Avengers movies,
Spider-Man, Avengers, right? Romancing the Stone, like he did all those. So I really like his style. He's good stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can tell it's all like
it's all synth. Yeah,
not
heavy synth.
And Golan, I'm sure Golan has said a lot of stuff. So I don't think I definitely don't buy that.
Right.
It's all budget. It's all budget.
Oh yeah, cheaper the better. That's what they're known for.
Yeah, Canon.
All right. Yeah, there you go. All right. Speaking of the motorcycle, the 1985 Suzuki SP600 motorcycle used by Chuck Norris was designed by Suzuki specifically for the film. After modifying it and adding the weaponry, Suzuki America gave the bike to Golden Globes Production in Israel prior to filming. So that was custom made, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is cool.
I'm gonna skip a few things, but I'm going to do these last two. So the original cut of the film, 3.5 hours long.
Wow.
I'd like to see that actually.
Right.
Director's cut. Where can we find this?
Release.
You're not going to find
Golan cut.
Yeah. So it featured several scenes depicting the political machinations on both sides of the hostage crisis. They also shot the backstories of the Holocaust survivors that were being held hostage on the plane. Those scenes were cut once the decision was made. They were going to focus more on the action than on the politics. And they said they did destroy the negative, so there's no way. It's like you're not going to find a director's cut. So it's gone.
Ooh.
All right, and so
why?
Yeah.
God, like how hard is it to just keep that in like a couple of tins somewhere? You know, like God, come on, guys.
Golden and Globus. That was
Ooh, Canon.
Look,
I hate you and love you so much.
Right. Yeah, they burned that, but we've still got. There was one I saw on YouTube a couple weeks ago. I didn't watch all of it, but it was like a promo reel from Canon Films of their upcoming movies. Like over half of them were never made, but they were like sizzle reels or whatever. So
well, that's how they used to sell their stuff. Like they would create posters. They would do those little like you said, these little kind of teaser sizzles, and they would get the financing, and then all right, let's go make this movie now.
Yep.
And
because back when it was going to be Bronson and Norris, they said they had publicity shots of them together in promoting the movie before it was even finished.
That would have been cool.
Started.
I would have enjoyed that. I think that would have been really awesome to see both Charles Bronson, and Chuck Norris together, like the two canon action stars.
Oh yeah. All right. So this was what I thought was interesting, and I'll mention this and I'll ask a question. So some network television versions of the film subtitle all the Arabic dialogue in English. So how did you guys watch the movie? Did you watch it online or did you have a copy to watch?
I watched it online today.
Amazon, yeah.
You watched it on Amazon? Did you? What did you watch it on, Chris? Do you remember?
Yeah, same.
Okay. So I watched it on Tubi. All of the Arabic scenes, there were no subtitles.
Oh, okay.
And even when I turned on the subtitles, it just said speaking Arabic. So it didn't tell you anything. So I was like, did they really release this movie without the subtitles, or is it just missing? And so I was curious, did you guys have subtitles for those sections?
Yeah,
they
were there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like if George Lucas can release, Wookiees on Kashyyyk,
right,
speaking their language with no subtitles, I think we're okay.
I mean, it didn't take anything away. Like I was like, why don't we know what they're saying? And so, but I read, which I thought I had on here, but they said that like there were certain versions that went on like the first wave of DVDs and VHS that it was missing. And so there's like some copies have it and some copies don't. So I'm assuming whatever version was on Tubi, because it's free, they got the one without subtitles.
Right, right.
And the bad thing is I own a DVD copy, but I was like, I'll just watch it on Tubi. So now I'm like, I should have watched it on DVD.
Yeah. No, I
see
hear
if my DVD has the subtitles. But I was curious. I was like, because I read that and I was like, well, if some TV versions put the subtitles in, were they not in the original? Like I couldn't find a clear-cut picture of like, were they there or were they not there? So
I mean, I remember watching it earlier and reading the entire dialogue between I don't know what to get. He was the radio man and one of the people in charge over the hostages and everything. And you get to the point where he's like American. He's speaking English. I said, American, I want to negotiate.
Oh yeah.
But you're reading the entire conversation before that. What's going on? How he'll be there shortly with reinforcements and blah 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 and all this stuff. And then he destroys the radio, shoots it, the radio and everything. Yeah. But then later on, when Lee Marvin asked him, he says, "Oh, we gotta hurry him get out of here. I think they're coming reinforcements." He's like, "Well, how do you know?" He goes, "Something I heard on the radio."
Something I heard on the radio.
Yeah.
You spoke Arabic.
Yeah, he said, "If we don't get out of here soon, we'll all be speaking it." Yeah, I remember that line. All right, well, let's talk about box office and critical reception. The Delta Force was released on President's Day weekend in February of 1986, debuting at number 3. It couldn't top Holdovers, Down and Out in Beverly Hills at number 1, and The Color Purple at number 2. It did beat out the other new releases for the weekend, however. Wildcats with Goldie Hawn was number 4, and Kevin Bacon's Footloose follow-up Quicksilver was number 8. So Rotten Tomatoes has it at 15% on the tomato meter with a 50% audience score. IMDb is 5.6 out of 10 with viewers and a 37 on Metacritic. So tomato meter is actually lower than Metacritic on this one.
How does the Rotten Tomatoes score work exactly? The higher the score, the better. The what? I mean, it's like everything else. Rotten Tomato. If you get more Rotten Tomatoes, does that mean you're better or worse?
No,
I would think worse.
Right.
Right? You would think so.
It's less Rotten Tomatoes, so it's better, right?
Right. You would think so. That sounds good.
Right. There's logic in there somewhere. We just got to think about it.
Yeah.
So, but no. So where does this fit with you? It's definitely higher than a 50. I mean, or 5.6. So, a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate it?
I'd give it like a solid 7. It's fun.
Yeah.
And the dramatic stuff, the caliber of actor that they have, I think it's a solid 7.
I was thinking 7.5, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah. I'm going like, it's a low 7 for me, maybe a high like 6.8, 6.9, just because it's not the best. It's not my favorite Chuck Norris. All the action is at the end, but I agree. I think there's more levity to it. It's trying to tell a more serious story. The director probably wasn't the best. He having a different director might have elevated a little bit more, but give him some credit. He did well with the talent that he had. Probably helped it a lot. So
if there had been at least one roundhouse, I would have gave it an 8. There wasn't one roundhouse in there, so
right.
It took away from it, I'm afraid.
But the motorcycle kicks it back up, so it makes up for the kicks.
Well, the motorcycle is what got it to 7.5.
There you go.
Otherwise, it was down in the 6s.
It is funny. You're right. Like we're used to seeing Chuck Norris fight, and there's no real fighting in it.
Even if you go back to his earliest, if you go back to his earliest at Breaker, he's driving a truck, right? He still has karate scenes in it. Delta Force, you're thinking this is a Delta Force, this is a military operation thing. Surely you're going to see some Chuck Norris fighting in there,
right?
And you get just a little disappointed because it's not there, but at the same time, they are a Delta Force team, and you see team strategic actions and stuff going on. So you got to appreciate it for that, for sure.
Yeah, it's more about the Force than it is about him. You're right. But then, even when he does fight, so like when he's hanging off the truck, right, and he's like trying to get the driver.
Oh yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger would have just grabbed the guy and thrown him off, right? And Chuck Norris, you're expecting him to like punch him or kick him in the throat or something, and like the guy would have been down. But it takes him a long time, and he almost falls off a couple of times. You're like, come on, Chuck. Like, what's going on? Like, you're Chuck Norris, bro.
Right. And he had to get the other guy that climbed from the back because like, you need some help,
Yeah, exactly.
Take the wheel.
Yeah.
So, but I will say, I was going to say another scene that I appreciated was the little training scene of them training.
Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
I remembered that as well. So I wish there was a little bit more of the training, a little bit more of the planning. Like, what is our plan going in? Like a little bit more of that kind of, strategy, them strategizing on the best plan.
Right.
Would have been a nice touch. Maybe it was a 3.5 hour version. We just
it's in there. Yeah, they cut it.
Yeah, director's cut.
Golan's like, let's cut it.
Release the Golan cut.
That's right.
All right. If you got the Chuck Norris jokes, now's the time. Who's got it?
Okay.
I got. You got one? Go ahead.
No, after you.
I was going to say Chuck Norris doesn't read books. He just stares at them until he gets the information he wants out of
it. Before he forgot a gift for Chuck Norris, Santa Claus was real.
Yeah, Chuck Norris once swam around the Virgin Islands, and now they're just called the Islands.
I like that one. Chuck Norris is the reason why Waldo is hiding.
There you go. What's the old favorite one? When Chuck Norris does push-ups, he doesn't push himself up; he pushes the ball down.
There you go.
There you go. Yep.
I love it. I love it.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, thanks guys for joining. I appreciate you guys being on here on this episode. So, Chris, what you got coming up with Retro Life for You podcast?
So, I just recently did Weird Science for one. And then the most recent one that we did was actually Beverly Hills Cop 4 Axel F.
Oh yeah,
nice.
One on Netflix,
so we decided that since people have been doing like the ones that recognize the 80s franchises, why not do this? And everybody loved it. It was a really fun movie to watch. So upcoming next though we're doing is going to be Tango and Cash, as I said earlier. So we'll
nice,
which we'll for next week,
which we'll be covering in our Action Pack August as well. So get a double dose of Tango and Cash,
double dose, Tango and Cash, Foobard.
Yeah, there you go. All right, what you got coming up in Totally Rad Christmas, Gerry D?
So, well, let's see. I guess by the time this drops, the episode that you were on with the last Starfighter,
yes,
is going to be dropping. There was the one we did with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out as well.
Oh, nice.
Where we talked about the comic there. This is all part of my like Christmas adjacent series. So like the Princess Bride, you know, because they tell the story at Christmas time. So that one's coming out. And then Dinosaurs. I got a Dinosaurs episode. I don't know if you remember that cartoon. It was from the later 80s. It wasn't like super famous, but and then the Christmas Raccoons, a Christmas record, you know, from 81, and then Family Matters, which is actually right at 1990, but that's okay. So, you know, whatever.
Just made the cut.
That's right. That's right. And then later on, I'll be doing Smurfs and Amen and a bunch of other cool stuff. So
very cool. So definitely check out Totally Rad Christmas and Retro Life for You podcasts. Great podcasts, great hosts, as you can tell, being a guest host here. So definitely give them a listen. So thanks, Gerry D and Chris, for joining today. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. If you had a blast listening to us, we'd deeply appreciate it if you'd take a moment to share your glowing feedback with a shiny 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Remember to hit that follow or subscribe button and help us spread the word to all your fellow 80s flick loving friends and family. If you have any burning questions or want to chat about your favorite scenes, reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also show your love and support for the show at buymeacoffee.com. Every little bit makes a big difference, and even $5 a month goes a long way. Also, be sure to swing by our online store at 80sflickflashback.com and tpublic.com for some killer 80s Flick Flashback gear and original 80s inspired designs. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. This is Tim Williams for the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Sleep tight, sucker.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.